So let's go ahead and get started. I want a fresh Bitcoin chart. Can I delete this chart? Yeah, this chart's already deleted. Noise. Okay. So this is kind of a somewhat tricky spot here. Realistically, we're kind of looking at, if you want to draw a trend line, that's basically your trend line. So we know that we have a little bit of a buffer zone per se, in the sense of we've had price kind of wick down into this area. Um, so the biggest thing right now is I wouldn't be entering fresh shorts on anything. If this is to go ahead and break down from here, we're probably gonna see bit of a steeper drop and look towards into here if we're losing this area right here. So if we lose this and this turns into like some sort of resistance here, we're going to be looking at 85K. This will be where you'd want to be longing the piss out of everything, probably. Not financial advice, but that's probably where you'd want to be longing the piss out of everything to end up targeting up to say like 130-ish thousand. And the reason for that is if we look at 85,000, it's the only level that we have where we have the daily has a wick at the bottom here. So that little wick is basically the start of this area. So losing this trend means we're likely to reset the trend. I would start, obviously right now for me, bull market, Bitcoin 84K, we can touch there again, but start trading below it. That's a no go for me there, Captain. Um, so yeah, biggest thing is I'd rather be opening longs here, even though this doesn't kind of look too appealing to open longs right now. If I like were to not open longs here and look to open longs maybe a little bit higher, realistically, we're gonna be kind of looking for a reclaim here. This is where I'd like to start opening longs again. If we are to bounce from here. So if we're to bounce from here and continue holding this trend that we have going on, I'd like to start entering longs again around here. I'm just not really keen to go ahead and leverage up a bit at all. And my plan was also not to really trade much of December. So doing pretty well on that. We have about 12 more days. So yeah, if this is where I'd be longing, if I'm longing, we end up losing this. I expect us to go down to 85,000. Above here, you should be clear skies to long. The reason why we have so this high in here came, set, rejected, sold off hard, right? And if we look, we can see that once this price came up, we got a little bit of a pushback here, and then we came up a little bit more of a pushback here, came up, pushback right here, and then we broke through. We got back down into here. We kind of held this area, bounced up, got the pushback here, boom. So this creates our little area of support and resistance. So what that means is right now we have a resistance at 105,000. That's basically where Bitcoin's resistance is. That's relative to all-time high. This price right here, 108, really isn't resistance. Obviously we could come up, reject again at some point in the future, but as far as like formulating trade plans, once we break out, because resistance, 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 right? That creates this being like a deviation. And that's why I say like this isn't resistance, because that's in technicality a fresh deviation. Um, so if we go ahead and break above right here, that's where I'm going to be looking for longs, because this would be considered a range breakout. If we don't and we end up rolling, there's also the worst case scenario that we end up losing this trend, but we form a range right here instead. So this is your constructed range that we're working with. This is basically the trend line where if we lose this right now, or we lose this over the coming days before we issue any kind of bounce up here, I'd be getting a little worried. Start planning for 84K. So does Bitcoin make sense to everyone? Kind of like my plans, ideas, and like where I think we're heading. Um, as far as short term, midterm, is Bitcoin all clear? You guys have any questions on Bitcoin? Yes, no, maybe so. Is my chat not working on my phone? Okay, Jacob, just take the most awful um, squiggle photo that I had at the time. Are you saying that because you're wanting, say, a clean retest of this slept? Like, is your idea behind that we end up getting, say, this like clean retest here? So, I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong and you're stupid. Just I disagree with you on that. Um, the like as far as like my trading methodology and like system wise, um, so right now this is basically considered your all time high breakout of Bitcoin. Right, this right here is considered your all time high breakout. There's a couple things with retests and whatnot. If price were to come down to 72K, it would need to do something over like a constructed, say, period of time. So that would be something like this, another 8 month like series of chop. The reason why is because if we were to go ahead and just go down there straight here in the next, say, 3 to 4 weeks, right? Um, that creates what looks like a blow off the top, like this. This would be equivalent to us going back down to 71K is price looking like this right here. So it's not constructive controlled. It's literally there's way more sellers than buyers, so it doesn't create a healthy positive price action. So you'd need to see it over an extended period of time. The second thing is um retests are sign of weakness. So when you have periods of these long consolidations here and you get a breakout, they don't really come back to retest, right? Um Period of consolidation, boom, straight up. Um Period of consolidation, boom, straight up. The next time a retest came, it was, bear territory, right? And the thing is, this was such a high time frame breakout. Any kind of retest, say within the next few months, even rather, is bearish. So that's at least how like I view things and how I've developed and looked and learned over the past couple of years. So to me, anything below 84K, the market starts to like be entering bear market territory. Okay. Where can we bid H bar? All right, H bar. Let's get an H bar. I'll come back to H bar real quick. This gap. It'll get filled someday, but it's not going to get filled in the next few months, in my opinion. It's a gap that we leave behind and we end up filling later on. Like, put it this way. There's your next two market cycles. Kind of dim. That's my opinion about that gap. And I'm saying that in a position of I didn't even know that gap exists until you mentioned it, Jacob. So it's not like it's a pre-planned thought, too. H bar. What chart did I have up? There we go. You should be able to buy H bar within here. This would probably be the price that you'd really want to look for. As far as like where it's gonna go. So I would look for something like this. A little bit constructive. May end up getting something like that. But that's where I'd look for. Because that's basically, like a almost 50 to 61% retracement of this entire move. So realistically, we shouldn't like go ahead and go below that. But if we do go ahead and get, say, a batch of consolidation here, like this is where you're going to end up wanting to be buying, because that would most likely mean that it's reaccumulating here. And this will end up being your breakout point for its next rally. Does that make sense? Meme. So yeah, if like ultimately I would buy here. Like that's where I'd plan to buy and just kind of blind buy in a sense. Know that we shouldn't go below 0.17. So you buy at 0.21. No, we shouldn't go really below 0.17. And you wait to see if something like this forms in the meantime. And if that starts forming, you start buying around here. If not, if that doesn't really form, and then you start buying at 0.21. Ethereum. Go ahead and put whatever other altcoins you guys want to in chats. Because after Ethereum, I'm not really gonna have much to talk about. Um, so Ethereum, I mean, it's same sort of thing with Bitcoin. It's at an area where we basically kind of should be starting to go ahead and bounce, right? Um, basically, he's more of a trade that I would be okay with taking right now as far as alongside, just because I don't trade trend lines. Really, in the case of like this case, I don't ever really trade trends. I leave that to horizontals. The only time I'll ever really trade a trend line is if it's a downtrend trend line. Um, just because I don't like to. It's not something I like doing per se. If I'm longing something on support, I'd rather it all be based off horizontal. Um, so ETH, kind of same similar situation. I really do like this chart though too long a little bit more. The reason for that is horizontals always help with better like clear invalidation stuff. I really kind of would rather have some patience around here and see how this daily candle closes, as well as like the Bitcoin daily candle closes. I think it's better to sit and wait for entering any positions just to see how these candles close, what's kind of what. Because I'd rather not open positions, say right now, and then wake up tomorrow and we're nuked straight through. That's just kind of entering positions for no reason. Whereas if we bounce, it's like, okay, there's not really like, oh my God, I missed freaking a 3% move. Oh my God, right? Like, okay, well, I don't really care. Like when I know that I'll probably be capturing like a 20% move if I just wait for it to go a little bit longer to the upside and I can go ahead and be more comfortable in that trade alone, right? Um, so definitely wait to shake, but we're into support right now. I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow we wake up and we see everything's like 1 to 2% green. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see it fucking everything's like 10% red. But E's more of like cleaner thing. You can go ahead and be aggressive, and if we close this 4 hour like this, right? You can look to kind of get long around here with stops just kind of below sitting down here. Um, and look to trade it back up. I mean, for right now, we're in a range. You can treat it as a range and as such. And you also know that Bitcoin is back at support, right? Um, but if we were to go ahead and lose this support, right? I do think it's more likely that ETH is gonna go ahead and um look to trade back into these lows here. If and that would fall in line with me on my Bitcoin 84K opinion. If that were to occur, this is where prices would be relative to 84. Um, so this is where I look to be actually longing the crap out of ETH. You lose back down here and forget about longing, just start shorting. Um, so yeah, for now, ETH on longs, I think it's good to touch here if the 4 hour closes, kind of how it looks. If not, I'd look to long down here around 3,000. Okay, so does everyone understand like my thoughts on Ethereum? Good to move on to Sol. We are not compressing. Okay, so if Bitcoin's end up bouncing and Ethereum's end up bouncing, what's going to happen is this is going to end up playing out like a little deviation here. And you can long the reclaim at 208. Put your stop below wherever these candlesticks end up. And if that reclaim happens of 208, you can start to target into here, into 260. Now, if this reclaim doesn't happen, right, as long as we're below 208.53, table's open for 184. Um, Realistically, if Bitcoin goes to 84K, we're probably going to be looking at taking into 160 ish area right here. Um, I really wouldn't be too excited of that. I'd hope on the high time frame that it looks like the weekly candle closure closes above 183 and we just have a wick down into here. Uh, this chart really isn't too exciting to me. I'm also not real huge fan of being in Sol right now. Normally, it's always been one of the coins that had the majority of my port, and right now it doesn't. This kind of looks like we're getting possibly this could have been a deviation. This might end up being a little deviation and we reclaim, and I'm completely wrong and I need to sell my ETH back into Sol. But for right now, in the past few weeks, I've been more so denominated in Ethereum over Sol. As far as spots concerned. So yeah, below that 208 level right now on the table, 183, 184 is open. If we get back above that 208 level, I I'd open longs and start targeting 260. And you'd have your stop basically below. I wouldn't be really surprised if the market bounces more just because I could see this chart right now with the weekly closing above here, weekly just wick down here. And then we end up going up just the way that candles would look. We'd have basically like a little weekly bull flag here in a sense. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Sol. As long as we're below 209, 183 is on the table. If we're back above 209, 260 is back on the table. Does that make sense, Mazana? Okay. Ina. Oh, my favorite coin. Actually, one of my favorites. Um, okay. So, right now, kind of have this that we're holding. So like the thing is with this right here, um, you don't want this breaking down because it's just going to turn into it going sideways. Most likely. I don't think there's a lot of downside like room for Ina in a sense of like going beyond here. I think if you're going to be buying any value buys, your value buys are at 0.78 right now. That's where I'd load the fuck up. If you could end up buying here, and I'd target all time highs from there. And that's basically 100% return right there alone. Um, so that's as far as like where I'd start to look buying like with actual size and comfort. I have enough spot that like I'm good with not buying any spot here. That's why I'd personally wait for that. I kind of need this to hold. Otherwise, look for 0.78 down there. Ina, I think if the market goes kind of how I think the cycle is going to go, I see this coin around $4 to $5 end of cycle. Um, Still, so the as far as right now though, just because I'm not really keen to be a buyer here. Again, the whole market's kind of like at this support level. I mean, because Bitcoin's at support, right? Or like just the market's in kind of a tricky spot for a lot of coins to position in the sense of like it things look heavy, right? Like the market looks heavy. It does. Um, I would like to think that we continue bouncing from here, but it's also one of those things I'd rather just like chill. It's okay to like sometimes just sit in spot, chill, and not do anything, and just let spot ride. So the the sorry, but going back to that, the level I'd look for as far as like where to long if like we do end up bouncing from here and you're not looking like too long, like go ahead and long a bit, say because you didn't long now and you're like fuck, okay, the market's gonna go up. Where do I long? Uh, I would look for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd look for that to be back above 1.2 here. This is basically a little deviation here. We have resistance, support, a little bit. That's basically our last known area. So that's basically showing that this is a deviation in a sense. Um, but we're gonna have resistance near 1.5 at all time highs. But that's where I'd say is our actual resistance level for right now is at 1.21. And our next like horizontal support and resistance area that we're going to be looking at is basically around here at point 0.9. So, but I think that gets blown through and we end up going down to here if Bitcoin goes to 84K. I don't think ENA goes below 0.78 if Bitcoin's at 84K. So does that make sense for ENA, Luke? Luke, you still in here? Yeah, thanks. Cool beans. All right. Total 3. It's either A, we're forming a range here, or B, we end up retesting here. And if that's a we end up retesting there, probably looking at something more like this down here because that would be more so in line with Bitcoin at 84K. So yeah, we're either ranging here or we're going to be going back down to here. Either A or B. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that meme? Or are you all good? Okay. And sweet. I'm not gonna lie. As long as we're below here, this shit looks like it we're gonna end up rolling over and cooking down into here. Like I don't know. I don't really see a chart. Like if we get a reclaim here, yeah, I think you're good with longing this, fresh highs, no problem. I mean, that's the long setup I'd take, but like I don't this chart doesn't show me anything to long as far as like unless we're looking at it from like a pure day trade perspective. Like swinging doesn't it's swinging there's like no like this chart doesn't look bullish to me one bit at all for any kind of swinging until 2.97 comes. We've had so the idea behind the rising wedge as far as like why it works uh is the idea behind it is that we're getting fresh highs, but those highs aren't like becoming they're not strong highs, right? They're very weak. They roll right back over. We're not breaking previous highs and just going. We're coming back and getting back under the previous highs right away. So like whenever you see this kind of PA in the sense that's kind of grimy, it's not really this isn't like a clean channel per se. I mean, this kind of looks like a clean channel here, but this has that like shitty rising wedge feel. Because if you were to like zoom back out and take a look at this, right? It just got that like shitty rising wedge look to it that's breaking down. Instead of it necessarily being like a clean channel. So I don't know. I I don't see anything bullish on it at all. Like as far as swinging, like I'd rather be swinging and punting shorts on this while I'm longing everything else in the market and just have that open as an entire hedge. Because even if it does like push up, I don't see it where it just dildos. Like I could see it totally running the highs and failing back down. So yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Unless you guys have any more questions. Have a good night, y'all. Okay. Well, that's that. Yeah, and I will see y'all next Tuesday. Or actually not Tuesday next week, because that will be Christmas Eve. I'll talk with Jacob for next stream. All right. See y'all.